I graduated from college in 2008, I was obsessed with building a career with a purpose. My greatest passions at that point were test cricket and hiking. And as you can imagine, neither watching test cricket nor hiking in the Himalayas requires much money. So I had to discover a higher purpose to my work beyond money. I grew up in a town called Manipal, just a couple of hours from here, in a family that was steeped in idealism. And when I thought about my career, I was heavily influenced by both my parents. My parents were both extremely successful doctors, but money was never their primary motivation. My mother, for instance, was a gynecologist, but she dedicated her entire life to her students. And my father was a successful anesthetist, but he volunteered more than 10% of his time every single year in providing service to the needy. So in 2009, I was really fortunate to attend a lecture by Professor Mohammad Yunus. Professor Yunus had started the Grameen Bank in the early 1980s as a response to the traditional banking system's refusal to give loans to the poor in the absence of any collateral. Professor Yunus's belief was that instead of treating poor people as beneficiaries who need our charity, we must treat them as customers who can use their own creative energies to help themselves out of poverty, if only they have access to loans just like you and me. And what's even more amazing is that 97% of their borrowers are women. So not only has Grameen Bank been able to create a financial revolution in Bangladesh, but by putting money and power in the hands of women, they've also been able to create a social revolution. And just like all of you in the audience today, as I sat and listened to Professor Yunus' story, I made up my mind. I was going to build a career in the social sector. So a few months later, I launched a nonprofit called Avanti Fellows. Our mission was to help the brightest students from government schools gain admission to the country's top engineering and medical colleges. And we felt that if we were able to do this, we would create role models in the community, and we could inspire future generations. So for our pilot project, we worked with a school system called the Jawahar Navodaya Vidyalayas. This school system is one of the best government school systems in the country. And the unique thing about the Navodayas is that they are almost all located in rural India. So when we had to figure out how to prepare these students for the IIT entrance exam, we had a problem on our hands because, given that they were in rural India, it was really difficult to hire experienced JEE tutors to teach our students. So we had to come up with an unconventional approach to teach them, where we reduced our students' dependence on expert tutors. So here's what we did. Firstly, we provided our students books and videos and made self-study the primary mode of their preparation. Secondly, we ran structured peer learning sessions for around a couple of hours every single day, where our students just sat together in groups and worked on problems together, just working with each other and helping each other. And finally, we tied up with IIT Madras to recruit a few student volunteers who spent a few hours every month on their weekends, mentoring our children, spending time with them, motivating them, and solving their doubts. Our first batch graduated with amazing results. Over 50% of our students were able to place in the top 15% on the IIT entrance exam. And over 15% of our students cleared the IITs and got into the coveted IITs. So this was a selection rate that was 3 times the national average. And the most amazing thing was, because our model was designed in a way where it was very low cost, we could achieve all of this at a cost of just less than 10,000 rupees per student. So we were really excited. This is our first major milestone. And at that point, we said that, look, we have a proof of concept. But how do we now take this proof of concept and take it to scale? And as most social entrepreneurs, right, we spoke to several of our friends, our family, our advisors, and the big question we had for them was, what was the right model for us? Should we do it as a for-profit? Should we do it as a non-profit? So this is the big question for us. All right, so now let me spend some time talking a little bit about how most venture-backed startups operate in the for-profit world, right? So the thing that is common to most venture-backed startups is that they're able to achieve three things. The first is they have a disruptive product or technology that can completely wipe out the traditional paradigm. The second is they're able to discover a business model that allows them to scale in a non-linear fashion. And the third is that they're able to do both of these things while achieving high profit margins. For instance, Apple, I think, is a good example of a company that has all these three traits in abundance. So with the growth of the social enterprise movement around 10 years back, there was a growing feeling that with successes like the Grameen Bank, it was possible to not only achieve these three things, but also achieve a fourth, which is creating impact at the bottom of the pyramid. Like most social entrepreneurs, we started at the intersection between creating a disruptive product and providing it at a low cost to students at the bottom of the pyramid. But we were really excited about the potential for our model because we felt that due to our reduced dependence on the star teacher, it was possible to scale our model in a non-linear fashion, much like most for-profit startups. And because of our low-cost structure, I told you that we spend less than 10,000 rupees per child, we felt that we could do this while serving the bottom of the pyramid and also achieving high profit margins. So achieving all these four things is honestly very, very rare, and it's the holy grail for all social entrepreneurs. And we truly believed that we were on the cusp of achieving something special. We felt that we could replicate our model and achieve all these four things together. So we decided to launch we decided to pivot our company into a for-profit structure. And we dove right in. We launched our first 3 centers in low-income neighborhoods in Bombay, in Delhi, and in Kanpur. And much like the non-profit, we had some very exciting early success. From our first batch that graduated, several of our students got into the IITs and the NITs. And what's most amazing is that one of our students, Ayush, also managed to get admission into MIT, arguably the world's best engineering college, on a full scholarship. So no, we were really excited. Things were going great. But this is when we hit our first major challenge as an organization. In the early days, we were very selective with the kinds of students we were working with. Our students were extremely smart and academically motivated. They were also very self-motivated to study. In many ways, they were very similar to the kids that we were working in the Navodaya Vidyalayas. Right? But as we began to expand, we began to encounter different kinds of students. We encountered students who are much like you and me. Right? Most of us are not that motivated to study. Most of us are actually not that equipped to self-learn. Right? So when that happened, we saw that there were various challenges that we came across. Our students needed a teacher in the classroom to constantly guide them, to motivate them. And look, even more practically speaking, when we have a classroom of mixed academic level, you just need a teacher in the classroom to be able to answer questions dynamically, and just make sure the classroom is going at the right pace. So when we started realizing this, we even reached out to some of our successful alumni, and we asked them what they thought. And all of them said in unison that while they loved the Avanti method of studying with their own peers, they would also have loved to have a teacher in the classroom. And this is not very surprising, right? When all of us reflect upon our own education experiences in school, we all have our favorite teachers that we fondly remember. Mine, for instance, was this gentleman in the photo, Mr. Matthew KG. Matthew, sir, was my history teacher, but beyond that, he was a funny guy. He was inspirational. He was engaging. He was a great storyteller. He was very knowledgeable. He inspired me to think beyond the box, and he had a huge influence on how I grew up as a child and a student. So this was not surprising. And when we took all these thoughts together, what was very apparent to us was that the gold standard in education had to be a combination of teachers and technology. Now, the natural consequence of adding a teacher to our product-only operating model was an increase in costs, which meant that if you really wanted to serve students from the bottom of the pyramid, somebody would have to subsidize these costs. So at that point, it was a fork in the road for us. We had to make a choice. We could either shut down the company and go back to running our nonprofit with an exclusive focus of supporting kids from the bottom of the pyramid, or we could continue to run the for-profit with a more realistic goal, where we could aspire to improve learning outcomes for millions of kids in the middle class, while actually actively deprioritizing our work with the bottom of the pyramid. At that point, we chose to do the for-profit. And I can tell you that it was a very, very difficult time and decision for both me personally, as well as several of our core team members. We had started Avanti with the mission of helping kids from the bottom of the pyramid. So it almost felt like we were accepting defeat and picking a different problem to solve by moving higher up in the income chain. But we stuck to our guns. We decided that we have to run the for-profit. And the main reason for that was that we felt that if we truly wanted to disrupt the traditional education industry, we had to first prove the efficacy of our model for the paying customer. So with the decision made, we spoke to our team, we aligned our team and our investors, and we got to work again. We put some of our best people behind the problem of building a world-class education product that could allow teachers to use technology to improve their classrooms, that could allow students to have an element of personalization when they were studying at home, and that also has something in it for management, right? We felt that management could do with data, with systems, with dashboards that would help them operate a network of 1,000+ classrooms that operated in various remote parts of the country. So it took us a few years to get this right. But as we got the product right, we realized that it unlocked the capacity for us to begin to scale rapidly once again. And within a few years, we began operating in several Tier 2 and Tier 3 towns across the country. Today, we serve thousands of kids in places like Chhapra in Bihar, like Guna in Madhya Pradesh, and closer to home like Hubli and Mangalore in Karnataka. And as the business was thriving, as we got the business to actually generate some healthy profits, something magical happened. We were also able to actually use those profits to cross-subsidize students from low-income homes in the areas that we were working in. And this model, by the way, has been employed by several organizations, especially in the health sector. Right? There are two organizations, the Arvind Eye Care chain in Madurai and the Narayana Health Group, which is now a publicly listed company, that I both greatly admire and that employ this cross-subsidy model. So now with our company doing reasonably well, we felt that we had the right operational and technological know-how to actually again begin to figure out an answer for the bottom of the pyramid. So we reactivated our nonprofit. And around that time, we were really fortunate to be picked by the Haryana government for a large-scale implementation project. So here's what we did. Our for-profit licensed our content and our technology to our nonprofit at a price that was less than 10% of our typical retail price. Our nonprofit then worked with the government to disseminate this product in over 250 schools across the state of Haryana. And this is a long-term project, right? It'll take us 4 years to even figure out if this thing actually works. So what we've done is we've actually also used a randomized controlled trial, or an RCT, in order to measure the efficacy of our intervention. So now, when I look back at the past 8 years, the biggest lesson that I have on social entrepreneurship is that, in many ways, I think social entrepreneurship is very similar to regular entrepreneurship. At its very core, it's about solving a problem for your customers, and making money while you're doing it. So if you're a social entrepreneur, I would strongly urge you to think about achieving your goals in a stepwise approach. First, focus on solving a problem for a customer, and focus on building a thriving business. I can tell you from experience that just doing these two things is a huge challenge for most startups. And once you're able to figure this out, you can then actively work on figuring out how to take this product and your learnings and disrupt, or rather impact, the bottom of the pyramid. We made this choice at Avanti a few years back, and if I were to do this a second time, we would make the exact same choice again. Doing the for-profit allowed us to actually prove and validate our model from the paying customer. And while I'll be the first to admit that we were very fortunate to have the support of the government so soon in our journey to work with the bottom of the pyramid, I think the biggest reason the government worked with us was that we were able to prove the efficacy of our model in our own centers at a reasonably high scale over the past 3-4 years. And in a crowded ecosystem of edtech innovation, there's so many startups here, I think that was one of the main reasons why the government actually picked us to work with them and take our work to the bottom of the pyramid. So today, fortunately, both our organizations are thriving. Between the two entities, we support over 60,000 students, and donors spend only 1,000 rupees per child in order to help us do our work. Everything else is through earned revenue, through fees. And over the past 8 years, we've been able to help over 10,000 students gain admission to India's top professional colleges, and we've been able to grow at 2x or twice every year for the last few years. So as social entrepreneurs, my strong belief is that if we are able to create sustainable engines for effecting social change, that's the best way for us to achieve the massive impact that we all dream of. And if we are able to create these engines, I believe that amazing things are possible. Thank you.